Hello, Dreamforce. Thank you for coming. My name is David Wang. I work in developer relations at MuleSoft, and I have with me Badi Azad from product marketing. Or sorry, product management.
It's okay. I do marketing sometimes too.
Yeah. But basically, thank you for coming today. Here today, we're going to talk about how to give an introduction to MuleSoft's Anypoint platform and talk about how it can help you to build simple, rapid SaaS integrations. And before we start, I just want to make this declaration that you should definitely make your purchasing decisions based on the products released, not necessarily about stuff we say here in the talk. But that being said, we actually are going to talk about a lot of pretty exciting things. Basically, 3 topics we'll cover. First, basically, what is SaaS integration and why everybody here should really care about it? And second thing is, what are some of the best practices that you can deploy to help you with SaaS integration? And lastly, kind of a demonstration of how Anypoint platform help you to use these best practices. So let's get going. First thing is, if you don't know right off the bat why SaaS integration is so important, don't worry, we'll kind of get through it. But first, a show of hands, how many people here actually use a SaaS product? That's right, trick question. We're at Dreamforce. Everybody uses a SaaS product. So what I'm going to go into next is a bit more of why integration is so important, right? And it really comes down to something like this. So this is one of my favorite quotes from Jeff Bezos, and it's about the customers. And he basically says that today customers have higher and higher expectations than ever before, and somehow their expectation is increasing at a rate faster than ever. Coming from the guy who actually does raise the bar for customer expectations a lot of times, we have him to thank for. And sort of to make that point clear, I would use an example that hopefully none of you had to go through coming to Dreamforce, which is the car rental experience. And if you look at this, it's actually it's a very good example because I'm sure everybody's experienced it. You flew into the airport, you're jet lagged and tired, you wait in line for a long time, and then you get to the counter, at which point they give you this paper form that is kind of a weird form factor. It's kind of long. They give you a pen that doesn't work, and they make you fill out all these things. And then finally get to the agent, they ask you the same questions that you just filled out on the form. And all to say that this traditional car rental experience is extremely unpleasant. And this is kind of like an example of disruption in the car and rental industry. So this is an example of a new player where they're able to change that, fundamentally transform that car rental experience from something that involves a lot of waiting, manual work, and generally unpleasant experience into something like 3 simple steps that you can take care of on your own phone. So much better. Basically, this is happening not just in car rental or travel, but it's happening across the board, across every industry. And it's basically incumbent on us, the people who are building these experiences, to figure out how to meet that expectation. And what we're going to go talk about next is a little bit about a few things that really customers come to expect, right? So the first thing is that nobody really wants to deal with traditional paperwork, paper process anymore. Today, everybody expects to have something on their phone and be able to interact with it directly. So effectively, they expect more convenience. And the second thing is that really people expect the businesses to know them and basically anticipate their needs. And the reason for that is because these days, data is everywhere, but it's rarely connected. So when you get into an agent and they ask you the same question over and over again, it is really kind of like an integration problem. And the last thing that people have come to expect really is that they just want instant gratification. Right? They don't want to wait in line anymore. They basically want to do everything in a self-service way. So when we kind of step back and think about what we then have to do to basically make all this happen, it actually comes down to great technologies. Right? So just in those examples we talked about, there are a couple of things. First thing is automation. So how do you transform what's traditionally a paper-based, lengthy, tedious process into something that's electronic? And typically that also involves creating a great experience in mobile. In the case of the car rental experience, a lot of times it actually involves IoT, which is to say, how do you allow your customers to interact with the physical world? And of course, all this stuff is really powered by data, big data, things that help you to know and anticipate your customers' needs better. So things like predictive analytics, or even just things like computer vision. So if you're like really worried about how to bring this to your customer, like there's actually pretty good news, which is that there's probably a SaaS app for everything you want to do. And that is illustrated very clearly just in the marketing technologies industry. So I picked marketing because like I'm kind of liking marketing. So if you think about 2011, there's only about 150 SaaS applications. Today in 2018, there are over 7,000. So what that means is that pretty much anything you want to do, any sort of technology functionality you want to provide, there is a SaaS application that you can subscribe to and bring to your customers. And that is it's a very powerful thing because it's also very convenient, right? Like you don't have to really hire any sort of software developers. You don't have to maintain any software. You just have to know how to sign a PO, basically. And it's instantly available. As soon as you subscribe to the software, you have it at your disposal. But there's actually two bits of bad news. We'll just sort of like take them in stride. The first one is that your customers don't really want a disjointed experience. And the best example of that is the iPhone, right? So until the iPhone came along, there are a lot of vendors out there building better telephony devices, better camera experiences, better productivity experiences, or better gaming experiences. But nobody was really that successful with a product until sort of like Apple showed up and pulled it all together in an iPhone. And that is really in many ways sort of like how fundamentally talk about providing a customer experience that has changed. It used to be all about R&D and innovation. Today, it's still about innovation, but it's in a different way, which is to say that how do you assemble these functionalities in a way that matters to your customers. And really, that is where a lot of the secret sauce is, because only you know your customers the way you do. So you're uniquely capable of giving them that great experience. And there's also sort of like a second piece of bad news, which is that SaaS by itself is not enough, right? And a lot of this is because to power these SaaS applications, a lot of the data you need is still in what we call kind of like legacy systems. And they're legacy because the data in there is not that easy to get access to. It's very hard to move them. A lot of times it's because there's just too much data to move. Other times it's because the format is really obscure and people are afraid to touch it. And sometimes if you're very unlucky, you are in an industry that it basically doesn't allow you to put the data anywhere else. You just have to like lock it down somehow. So basically what we're saying at the end of all this is that if you want to provide a great customer experience, you can use SaaS applications, but you need to figure out how to assemble them, right? So a couple of things you have to do. First, you have to figure out what are the right functionalities to get, probably around replacing paperwork and manual processes. And secondly, is you have to figure out how to integrate with your legacy systems to get to the data. And then you have to blend all this with great integration, and only then can you bring a great experience to your customers. So to talk about what are the great ways to do that blending, we'll have Badi.
Great. Thanks, David. Thanks for that setup there. Appreciate it. So I think that David really talked about the heart of the challenge today, is that out there we want to create the best customer experience possible by integrating all of the data that we have in our various systems. However, when we think about that daunting task, oftentimes what we hear and talk about with our customers is a fixed mindset versus a progressive or future mindset, right? We talk about that a lot here at MuleSoft with our customers. And what comes out from our conversations with many of our customers is that really when they think about the challenges that they have today, they're not sure exactly how they're able to integrate all those systems into getting to that ideal state in the future. And we see this quote, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we used when we created them," right? So what I wanted to do then was talk about that progressive mindset in terms of what we need to change, what the realities of our systems and our situations and our organizations are, and what we can do to change those, and how MuleSoft might be able to help you with the Anypoint platform. So let's take a second and think about where our bottlenecks are, right? So we know that our IT teams inside of our organizations are truly the engines of innovation for us. And they're able to do a lot of amazing work. However, what you see here today in the first arrow is their ability to deliver the work that they have to do. But on top of all of their day-to-day tasks is a rich backlog of wants and needs by the rest of the organization, right? So whether that's tasks that specific to delivering more cloud data or SaaS applications that's out there, or utilizing some of the big data systems that's out there. They also then have to worry about maybe mobile or IoT form factors if you guys wanted to create more mobile-specific types of experiences for your customers. All of this work leads to what we call at MuleSoft the IT delivery gap. And that gap represents what they're able to produce today with their current resources versus what the demands are in the future. So what do we need to do here? So really the talk track then becomes around creating a new culture of self-service, where we empower the rest of the organization that's outside of IT to be able to build these integration solutions. Now, a few pointers for you as you start to think about this, right? So number one, we want to make sure that we leverage point-and-click tools, easy tools for your employees to be able to understand and onboard quickly. We need to be able to eliminate some of the cross-functional dependencies. Who has access to what system? Where does it live? Where does the data actually live? And really, you want to bring them that solution at that point of need. So, for example, if you're out there and you want to take maybe case information from Salesforce and you want to move it to Zendesk, you want to be able to do that right within the business system or the line of business, right? Now, we understand that there's data that you already have access to. Many of you raised your hands when David said who's using a SaaS or an on-premise system. However, the problem there then becomes that oftentimes that data is then siloed, right? Out of the box, they don't come with connectors. It's really why MuleSoft was created, to help with that problem. Now, unfortunately, there's some unintended situations when you have all of these SaaS apps. You have obscure formats of data. Some of your legacy systems might have more obscure formats of data that you'd have to then understand how to learn and then utilize. Sometimes it's different in terms of reconciling the data between system to system. So maybe one database takes one date format and another one might take a different, and there's some type of function conversion that you have to do in the middle, right? And rightfully so, the last one is around the fear of compromising sensitive data. So as we look forward then, what we really do want to think about is how we can securely liberate that data. How can we help our employees self-discover, connect to, and then handle that data in those various systems? Now, you want to be able to have your employees not go back to school and get a development degree or learn how to code, right? That's the goal then, right? So we have to really give them that abilities without the technical complexities that come with it. We need to allow them to decipher the various types of data structures in the systems that you're using simply, without having to really sit there and figure out and read manuals and understand what is available to them. We have to then, once they have access to that data, simply allow them to manipulate and move that data across system to system. And lastly, we got to make sure that we govern correctly. So I'll tell you a story. MuleSoft does a lot of work with a lot of the banks, and one in particular here based out of San Francisco, they had a mortgage department that came to the central IT of the bank and said, look, we want to build a mobile application for our customers so that they can apply for a mortgage online. And the bank was like, okay, we could give you access to the customer record, but it's got the social security, it's got the bank accounts, and I'm not sure. So what we do then together, as we work to ensure to create this new experience, is maybe we tokenize some of those more sensitive pieces of data so that it abstracts away from what they actually have access to. So if the mortgage lender wanted to create a mobile business application that allowed someone to fill out maybe update their home and work information, their phone information, and update that central system, they're not also getting and passing back and forth records that include social security numbers, right? Now we know that there's tools out there that help you do these integrations, but the problem there is that many of you have more complex business systems, or you've created maybe custom software, or you've taken your Salesforce instance and you've added some specific business properties to it. And what we've seen out there are that many of these integration solutions, they work great for simple cases. But the moment you have complex data structures, or you have more archaic systems that are maybe mainframes inside, maybe they don't have connections or connectors to them. Maybe their actual data structures are too complex to be able to use. So look for a solution that's flexible enough from that perspective as well. So I guess what we would want then is a simple tool, but yet something that's able to handle the more complex use cases that are out there. So, MuleSoft thought about this, and we've created lots of turnkey templates and examples. Examples that you're probably going to have employees think about and reuse over and over inside of the organization as starters, which you can then take and then optimize and customize for yourselves. We reduced the complexity around the applications and the complexity around data manipulation. So as I'll show you in a minute here in the demo, we are taking the data structure and making it palatable. You can understand it. You can look and drag it across if you need to. You can connect the two dots together. And then we really kind of allowed you to then take that application. If you're more code-centric or you wanted to do more complex scenarios, you can then transfer or export that off to someone who has the ability to add more complex use cases around it. Right? So that's another piece that's important. Oftentimes when we talk to our customers, they say, Batty, look, even our line of business users, they want to create these integrations. However, they're actually business critical. They will affect the bottom line. If they go down, or if the data becomes stale, well, it affects our revenue. So we need to be able to manage these systems, right? And so you want to make sure that when you think about solutions out there, you're thinking about providing accurate data, rich data that's actually still current. You want to make sure that you support or have SLAs around it. You want to make sure that you monitor and troubleshoot. So the last thing I leave you with here then is think about it as an actual production quality integration that you're trying to create. We have customers that are larger that actually have teams that are dedicated to this. So you take your integration solutions that you create, you pass it off to them, they run it for you. If, God forbid, 3 a.m. in the morning something goes down, they get an alert or a text or however they choose to do it. They go in there and they're able to analyze and understand what the problem is, and they can then go in and fix it. On the other end of the fence, we also have customers that are kind of a one-stop shop, right? They're responsible for everything from design, the entire life cycle, design to test, to deploy, monitor, and manage. Right? So we have to have that flexibility inside of our tools as well. All right, so with that, let's do this. Let's keep things that should be simple, but yet allow for the complex to happen as well. And let me go back to David's example with the car rental situation. So we could show you the MuleSoft products, and we can show you how to take data from system A to B. Okay, cool. We can show you how to synchronize maybe some of your data sets between systems. But what if we wanted to kind of create a new experience for our customers? Let's try something fancy like that. Let's think about how we transform a regular car rental industry, right? And take users and allow them to register for a new account, and then allow them to upload that information that we need, updating our back-end systems, and then let them choose a car from maybe telemetry information from where they're located, and then serve them some of that rich data, let them choose that car, and then send them a way to unlock that car and drive away, right? So let's build a few integration flows that demonstrate some of these abilities. All right, so what am I going to show you? We're going to take a look around the MuleSoft Anypoint platform. I'll show you some of the capabilities there. I'm just going to scratch the surface. I'm going to build you a few integrations, 4 of them to be precise, and I'm going to try not to code. Okay, so a couple drags, a couple drops, a couple configurations, and off we go. We're going to access a few different systems, so we'll access Salesforce. We'll look at an on-premise database that we use in the back room that has all of the car information, what's available, some attributes, maybe some pictures, stuff like that. Then we're going to use one of these fancy SaaS apps that's out there that takes a picture and is able to take away all the text and update our Salesforce system. And then maybe we'll just send an email, something like that. All right, so bear with me. I am going to transition here.
All right, that worked.
Yeah. All right, hold on. I don't want to mess up the, all right, are we good? You guys can see this? Yes. Okay, cool. All right, so what you're looking at here then is the MuleSoft Anypoint platform. And what we see here on the top is our design center. And inside of Design Center is all of your design tools. So your ability to create maybe API specifications, maybe some fragments, but also to create these integrations that you want to make. Right? On the right-hand side then, we see our management center. And this is really powerful here. The management center gives you access to management of your users, for example. It gives you the ability to monitor maybe if you have some APIs that are out there, but also, again, those integrations that you're creating. You'll get alerts if you wanted to set those up. You could look at logs. You could look at monitoring, on and on. And then the Anypoint Exchange. Now, this one's really cool. So let's take a look into this one. So Exchange was actually just redesigned. And think about this as the app store for your integrations, okay? So within here, what you see here is a list of all different types of assets that are available to you. Whether it's templates or examples to help you get started, whether it's out-of-the-box connectors that MuleSoft offers, allowing you to just click, connect, and go from without even having to code. So let's take a look at one of these. All right, so this is an example of a MongoDB connector that we have. So this one is free and it's available for anyone to use. Looks like this MongoDB connector has some detail about the actual connector itself, what it does. Looks like there's been some ratings and reviews by someone named Matthias Kocher. There's some versioning that's available, as well as some tagging that's available as well there. Right? So we get a pretty good view of all those things that are available for us. And this is an opportunity for you to discover by yourself, as well as to go back and add in to the general community. Right? So let's take this and switch over now to our design center. All right. So the design center then shows us a list of those integration projects that we have, or the API specifications that we've created. And this is kind of where we create new instances of these things. So for the purposes of this demo, I've created a Dreamforce workspace project. Now let me show you around here for a little bit here. So what we see here is the actual Anypoint Flow Designer. So the Flow Designer is a brand new product. It's a web-based, easy to use IDE, right? It's a development environment for you to go and click, drag and drop various types of systems and elements together to create your integration flows. So what you see here is the ability to create a new integration flow. And it's very prescriptive for you. It actually says, okay, what is it that you want to start the flow, right? So in our example, why don't we do this? I've created a simple form on the left here. And that form, you see, just has some information. Now, this could be a web form or a mobile form, but let's say it captures information from our users, and we take that form's data, and we want to create a new account inside of Salesforce. Okay, so here is my Salesforce account. You can see that there's some stuff pre-populated. We can see here that we've got our form, so why don't we go in here and pick up our listener tool, so our listener will listen for updates that's there. And what we'll do next is we'll select our target, right? So where does the data actually go? Now, it's actually really visual. So you can just search at all of the different types of out-of-the-box connectors that we offer. For this demo, we'll take our Salesforce connector. And then you have access to all of the operations that you can do with Salesforce, right? So why don't we go and do a create single. All right, so this will actually go in and create a single new object type, and we'll get into that. Now, let's look and see what's happened here. So in Flow Designer, you actually have the cards representing the flow that you're trying to create. We're going to take information, we're going to listen for a change from a form, we're going to do some transformation, and we're going to move it into Salesforce. So why don't we just go ahead and configure some of that. So you can put in here on the card, like your URL, for that specific object that's coming in, right? So that'll listen for our form-based information. And then let's go in and configure our actual Salesforce connector. So what I've done here before the demo started is I actually entered in my Salesforce credentials so that I didn't have to go in and add my username and my password here. However, what Flow Designer is able to do is that it's able to actually introspect the Salesforce system itself and give back to you all the objects that you have access to. So, we can either look for what we want, or we can just type in accounts, and we can just go ahead and select it. Now, check this out. All I have to do then is move the data or transform the data from our form into Salesforce. And let's see how we do that here in Flow Designer. So you open up your transform dialog here, and what you see here on the left is your input payload, is all of the object types that's coming in from the form, right? And on the right, you see your output payload. So you see all of the account-specific information from Salesforce. Now, I'm going to scroll through it so that you can really appreciate the richness of all of the values and variables that you can adjust. And if you can see here, as you guys are all experts here, you understand the account object actually has some nested arrays as well. So Flow Designer allows you to take something from the left, drag and drop it to the right, and it creates that map. It creates that map for you. Let's do that here. All right, so it allows you to take the address, for example, close off the parent, and you can drag it into city if you want it. Now, that's fine, and that's very visual, and it's very easy to do. However, we could do better. So I'm really excited to announce that we have added a machine learning algorithm behind the scenes, taking all the information of the integration projects that people have made on MuleSoft, and we've introduced an automapper. So what you see here flashing is a preview button, and that preview button, when you click it, will actually go ahead and recommend for you the mappings for those two systems. Truly powerful and enabling you really to just click away and create your flow without really understanding the specifics about the system, right? And so we can kind of see a preview of that data that then has come in. I can apply it, and off I go, and I can run it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to try to run this application. Let's see how it works and go from there. But before we do, let me take you to the second step. So we talked about going and taking telemetry information from the person's phone, sending that off to a database, running a little query, and getting back information about the cars that are available for them, and sending that back to the phone, right? So let's see how that one works. Again, we listen for the telemetry information from the phone. We access the database and run a simple SQL query where we're selecting all the information that's available, and then we pass it back over to them. Now, why don't I hit run? Why don't I go back into my mobile application? All right, and what I want to show you here, now that it's running, is that I actually want to generate some information. So if you know MuleSoft, you know Max the Mule is our mascot, and he wants to rent the car, so why don't we have him sign up for it? And I'm going to hit the sign up button. And what you should see, and focus on the right-hand side, please, what you're going to actually see is that the data goes right through the flow. And what turns green in real time is the data from your customer that has gone through that test. There's a really powerful concept here. You're actually able to see the data flow through your integration application. You can test it out. And why don't we actually look and see what's coming in? So we see on our input, we see the information that was given to us from the form. And on our output, we can see some of the mappings. And so we can see that that actually turned green. If we had an error, it would turn red. We can go in and diagnose it there. So let's go to Salesforce. Let's refresh our accounts. And we see Max. Max is there. OK, awesome. So that worked. Great. Now, what we see on the left-hand side on our mobile device is that database call as well. So we can see that we have some information provided back to us about cars and our geolocation and what's available to us. And now why don't we go ahead and pretend we'd like to do that rental. I love the convertible. I think I'm going to do that. So remember, if we want to rent a car, we actually need to provide some of our license and maybe registration information. So why would we ask the user to type that in? Why don't we use one of those SaaS applications? So what we've built over here, let's go back to Flow Designer and look at our third flow, is just another listener that goes in and passes information, specifically the picture, to the SaaS-based application whose only job is to take a picture, pull out the text, and pass the text forward. We do a little bit of transformation, and again, we update the Salesforce record, the specific one that we had. Okay, so let's take a look at how that might work. Let's take a picture of Max's license. I happen to have it. Let me pull this up here. This is not identity theft. This is just Max's license. I'm going to do it on his behalf. Okay, cool. All right. So once again, the data was able to get taken from that picture. We pulled out the address, the city and the state, and we can see it kind of go through. So why don't we go back to Salesforce? Why don't we refresh our data? And great, we've got California updated in Max's record, right? Very simple to be able to pass that data. Now, of course, when you're done with this, the rest of the demo was just that we send an email and we can maybe send a QR code or use an IoT system to unlock the car, and off we go. Now, I think what's really interesting about this is that I didn't really have to code here, right? And I think what's really powerful about this concept is that if we can break down some of those complex structures and use some machine learning, right? And if we can add some help there for the user, then they can make some of these experiential changes. And when they're ready, they could do a few things with it. They can either go ahead and click this deploy button, and they can move it to maybe a sandbox or production environment if they wanted to do that. Or maybe if they wanted to add some more advanced capabilities here on the right, they can add some more business logic. We can do things like maybe a for each loop here, and we can kind of go off and create that if we wanted to. Or we can go off and then export this and give it to maybe central IT to run or manage or add more information to it. Whatever we wanted to do at that point, we've got that flexibility. So I get that it's a simple demo, right? And I get that there's so much more you can build. But I think the challenge that I would put back out to you is with a tool like that, what types of integrations or experiences could we build for our customers together? Right, so I'll pose it out to you. David, back to you.
All right. All right, so as we sort of ponder Bodhi's question, I'll leave you with sort of a summary of like the 4 things we sort of saw in the demo. So the first one is, create a culture of self-service with very simple tools that are easy to learn so that we no longer have to depend on the specialists. And the second thing is that, being able to use that tool to quickly access data that previously was unavailable to you because the tool is smart enough to help you interpret the data. And the third thing is, have something that uses machine learning or some kind of visual mapping to help you actually navigate the manipulation of the data. And the last thing is, basically how to build something, but then not only just to build it, but make sure that it continues to work for your business by deploying it into production and treat it like a real software because it powers your business. And at the end of all this, I want to leave you with the full picture of what MuleSoft Anypoint platform is. So we talked about the building the integration part, but it's actually a lot of other things. And the reality is that if you want to solve complex integration problems, you need to build some APIs. So Anypoint platform gives you a host of capabilities to build the APIs. In addition, even though we showed you the part of Anypoint Exchange that allows you to download the assets, it actually is a great place for you to contribute also, so that not only can you enjoy the work of others, you can actually become a contributor yourself. When you contribute code or assets, it can either be public or private to organization. It's very flexible. And the last thing is, we showed a little bit of how the production piece works. There's actually a whole big section of the product that's dedicated to making sure that everything you build runs well and stays running. So that was a lot, but there's actually a lot more to learn. So please stop by our booths at the campground or Integration Peak, which is just up on the 3rd floor. We have a lot of other demos. Check them out, learn more about the product. We actually have a lot of other sessions that you can also go to learn more about different use cases. And lastly, after Dreamforce, there are a lot of ways for you to actually just try to build some of the things yourself, right? So we have a free trial that you can just sign up, get access to the tool. There's good step-by-step guides that you can use to try to build out your use case. And we also have pretty vibrant user communities across the world. So if you are interested in what other people are building, meet them in person. And then finally, we have a lot of online training that is free for anybody to just access. And we just rolled out a new trail on Trailhead, which if you want to earn your badges, that is a great way to go as well. So with that, I'd like to thank you again for coming to the session. Have a good show. If you have questions, happy to answer them.
We have a couple of minutes. If anyone had questions, either feel free to ask us or, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so your demonstration was very happy path.
Yeah.
How does it handle errors and things like that along the way? You know, maybe for those modules.
So the question was, how does what we showed up here was really the happy path, and how does it handle errors? So as I built out that flow, the one that allows you to go in and insert an object or create a new account in Salesforce, what we probably should have done is check to see if that account already exists, and if it exists, fork it out, create it if it doesn't, and update it if it does, right? Or give an error back. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So in the transform itself, we abbreviated that in. And I can show you. OK. So in the transform, one of the things that we allow you to do is just drag and drop across and map those fields. However, behind the scenes is an actual language called data weave, which is a scripting language that you can then go and add functions to it. So one of the things that we're really excited about rolling out, and the team is up here up front here that did a lot of this work, is visually allowing you to apply functions such as concatenate or round or any of the things that you're commonly used to using to those actual data sets as you go from the source to the destination. And that's what we were doing to make sure that the data was clean there. Yeah. Kind of like Lambda. It's got a whole set, it's got a whole language behind it that you can apply inline, exactly, yeah. Similar to
Yeah, so data weave is like a functional language, kind of like Scala, if you're familiar with that style. So it's very compact. It's basically optimized for data transformations.
Yeah, I mean, I've read a little bit about data weave. I was just curious about having a plug-in or a connector for plugging into a Lambda.
Not yet, no, but it's a good idea.
Sorry, there's a question.
Yeah.
Calculations or even triggers that go on the other side. So if you have to have complex calculations that you need on the Salesforce side, Ravex, can you pass that?
So the question is, can you pass Salesforce calculations or scripting on the Salesforce side back into it? You can't pass in the Salesforce specific stuff in yet. However, now that the acquisition is closed, there's a lot of work that we're actually trying to do to bring those pieces together much closer. So in a demo that you might see tomorrow in the MuleSoft keynote, you might see some actual work that's happening on that side. I don't want to give it away, but there's some work that's coming out there that will allow you to have tighter integration between your various Salesforce clouds and some of the MuleSoft products. Now, being able to pass in that stuff in right now, no, it doesn't exist. Is it on our roadmap? Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
Another roadmap question. The visual editor right now looks a lot like if you're in Salesforce using the visual flow editor.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the question was, the look and feel of the Salesforce editor and the MuleSoft editor was very similar. Are there plans to actually merge those together? So interestingly enough, we just met with the Lightning team, and we're looking at ways of having a more consistent experience across some of those tools. Right? And so the discussion then naturally goes into where do you do some of that integration work? Can you do it right within the Salesforce Cloud apps, or can you do it within Flow Designer? And I think we're still trying to figure that out there. But from a consistency standpoint, you might start to see more things become much more consistent going forward. It's really early, we just closed, and we're still trying to figure all those out, but definitely the conversations are being had at this point in time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? Awesome. Thanks for coming. We really appreciate it. We'll stick around for a few minutes.